We're learning to tell the time to half past. So our aim is to tell the time at half past, and we'll know that we've done this because we know that the clock is made of two halves, and we know that the time is read past the hour. Let's have a look. So do you know the answer to these questions? How many seconds are there in a minute? Well, of course, there's 60. How many minutes are there in an hour? The answer to that is 60. So how many minutes are there in half an hour? So we're dividing an hour into two, and of course, 60 divided by 2 is 30. Do we know how many days there are in a month? And sometimes that can vary between 28 in February and 31 in some of the other months. How many days are there in a year? Well, there, of course, there are 365. Okay, so a clock face is a full circle which is made of two halves. So if we look at it here, we can see the two halves. So if we've got 60 minutes make up a whole hour, then how many minutes make up half an hour? And we can see here this side equals 30, and this side here will also equal 30. So the answer to that question is 30 minutes make up half an hour. And this shows it again. When it is 30 minutes past the hour, we say half past the hour. Okay, and there's the other half. Look at this time. The big hand is pointing at the 6, which is halfway around the clock. Now remember we looked at the minute hand or the big hand pointing to the 12 before, and that was o'clock. So now it's pointing at the 6, and that's halfway around the clock. The small hand is pointing at the 2. So it is halfway between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, so that it is 1:30. What time is this clock showing? The big hand is pointing at the 6, and the little hand is pointing at the halfway between the 11 and the 12. So we know that it's 11:30. When this comes around, it will then be 12 o'clock. What do you notice about the small hand? Okay, so when it's when the large hand or the big hand is on the 6, then the small hand points between the two numbers. So this at the moment it's pointing between the 3 and the 4. So this time is showing 3:30. Can you have a look at these clocks? Which clock is showing 2:30? If you chose this one, you were right. Which clock is showing 9:30? Okay, and it's this clock here. And then which clock is showing 7:30? We can see that the large hand here is pointing to the 6, so it's 7:30, and this short hand is between the 7 and the 8, so we know that this one here is 7:30.